Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the channel,
What's
everybody.
happening?
How are you doing there, Indigo?
Chilling, man. Chilling.
All right.
Staying irate.
Well, we're gonna do this video today. We're gonna kind of talk about something kind of interesting. Saw this article on military.com, and what they did was they published a survey result from a nonprofit called Blue Star Families. And what it shows is that they surveyed over 7,000 soldiers, or I'm sorry, service members, veterans, and military members. And out of those 7,000, only 32% of active duty respondents said that they would recommend military service to their loved ones or family members. What do you think about that, Indigo? Kind of crazy, right?
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of variables in there that come to play when people make those decisions. But yeah, it's I'm shocked, but not really.
Definitely.
I've been there, done that, went through it, familiar with a lot of the issues and concerns that people have. Um, but yeah, it's definitely a concern.
Well, let's dig deep into this because there's another article based off that survey, and so it shows that 32% of military families would only 32% would recommend military service. And the reason why they say right here in the article, if you can see it, says citing poor job opportunities for their spouses, poor mental health and physical health services, housing concerns, and a whole bunch of other issues. And a little bit lower down on here, which is I thought was really, really, really crazy to see, is that around 70% of active duty soldiers, service sailors, airmen, and Marines, so they're paying more than $200 out of pocket for civilian housing options. That's kind of crazy to think about, especially like where you go. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. If so, just going back to a couple of those that you mentioned, spouses having issues finding jobs. Um, yeah, there are programs on the base that help out with that. I think um, I know me personally. That's how my spouse got a job is through a program found on base. She was able to go to submit. They help you work on a resume and all that good stuff, and she was able to find employment. But I do see how if there's not that kind of resource at the installation, especially where in most installations are located, there's very little resources outside the base for anything like that. So if the base doesn't have a resource for spouses, then you're kind of out of luck, you know. So I can see where that's a struggle for spouses for sure.
Most
Um,
definitely.
going back to the last thing you talked about, was it 73% or
Yeah.
70%?
73% pay out of pocket for housing.
Yeah, and that's true, man. Because most base housing, they're privatized now. Um, so they just gobble up that BAH, and you get it and you lose it. But off base, you're talking, you know, depending on if you live in California, you're screwed. Um, but you're not getting BAH that matches the local area, and if you are, it's barely enough to get by, and for sure you're coming out of pocket, for sure. That's
Definitely.
almost a guarantee.
And for the listeners out there, or if you're watching this, BAH is basic allowance for housing, and it's something that DoD provides to its service members. That basically it pays you to be able to rent an apartment, a house, or live on post housing. And some people out there don't realize, even if you're on post housing, you're still paying for it. It's not free. So you get paid by DoD, and you pay that to like what Indigo was saying. You pay that out of pocket, or you pay it back for your housing. I know one thing I could say, a lot of bases, it's super hard to find housing, and a lot of the owners and renters that have houses and rent available, they know that the service member is going to have to get a place, so they can kind of charge whatever they want. And that doesn't even count, electric, water, your gas, the gas to run the house, or gas that you're going to use to drive to and from the base for work. So I know in my personal experience, there's been a few places I've been stationed at that I came out of pocket probably $500 a month for a house that I rented, and I lived 40 minutes away because that was the closest thing we could find. When we moved to this spot, I was married. I had a very young child at the time, and we were in a hotel for like 2 months trying to find a house or an apartment or anything we could find to rent, and it just took forever, to the point where we just kind of like, man, let's just start looking further out. And 40-minute drive doesn't sound big, but when you're going into work, at 5 o'clock in the morning and you're not coming home till about 6, 7 o'clock at night, that kind of starts to wear and tear on you, and that's a lot of more time away from your family. Um, I don't know if you, in your experience, if you ever had that Indigo, but that's one that that kind of came up with me a little bit. Um, Something else I wanted to add, it kind of breaks down for more of the respondents, and they said their concern was with, like we kind of mentioned already, spousal employment, but a big one was time spent away from their family. A lot of them had concerns about the pay, and a lot of them had concern about children's education, either on the base or off the base. What do you think about that? What are your thoughts on that in your experience?
I'm trying to track what you're saying here. You said time away from family. How'd that come up in that article?
So in the article, what they show is they kind of break it down. You know what I mean? Like why people say what they say. So let me bring it up so everyone can see it. So if you look where I'm highlighting that here, nearly half of respondents were concerned with spousal employment. 38% were concerned with time spent away from family. 37% were concerned about pay. 36 and 33 were concerned about housing and children's education. So that's out of
Okay.
the 7,000 that they did did actually completed the surveys.
Okay, so you're talking retention. You're talking that's, one of the
Kind of
3.
ties all into it.
um
Or in
right.
this case is why you wouldn't recommend military service. Because from earlier it said that only 30% of those 7,000 said that they would recommend military service to other people.
So here's my take on it, and mine's is probably out left field. Bro, it's the military. You're going to be away. You probably don't know how it's going to feel like. You probably don't know what you're going to go through. You probably don't know a lot, right? Because when you signed up, you didn't have a wife and kid, right? Like, you don't know what any of that's going to be like. But when you sign up to join a service, you plan on you're going to be gone, dude. You know what I mean? And yes, granted, you don't know how long it's going to be. You don't know what it's going to feel like. But I mean, to say that that's always been there. That's never been like new to the military, right? Like, you're gonna deploy, you're gonna be away from your family. That's what the military does. If you join the service and you hope to not go anywhere, you're highly mistaken. Like, you're joining for the wrong reason. Um, I don't know. That's kind of my one thing is like, dude, we knew that coming in, right? So it's kind of a cop out.
I
My
would
personal,
agree. I would
you
agree too. I mean, it's like, it's like going to get a job at McDonald's and expecting not to ever have to like make a burger and fries. I totally agree. Like it's the military. Anybody that kind of sees anything on TV, you're gonna have either overseas tours, you're gonna have to go to training or schools, or you're gonna have to move in PCS to new bases or spots and stuff like that. So I think I kind of agree. I do agree with the housing and the children's education, because I know some bases I've been at, it's been pretty shoddy, and it's
oh
so
yeah.
hard to try to get housing fixed, especially when you're on base. It's so hard to like get work orders done, and then the housing people act like they're doing you the favor, and it's like, I'm paying for this. It'd be no different than if I was off the base renting an apartment or a house. Like, I'm paying for this. And then the education thing too. Now, do I think it's that? I understand it's a concern, but do I really think that it would be a reason not to recommend military service? I would say no, because I mean, with schooling, especially, like, you can kind of move schools. There's some options, but I do understand it is tough. I think the more important thing that is that if you do have children, is like being able to get them affordable childcare, because a lot of people
Hmm.
in the military, being that you're gone a lot, it's hard for the spouse to work. Sometimes it just can't work out like that. And if the spouse does work, then you have to try to get your child into into some kind of daycare or something, especially if they're not school age yet. My experience, same thing. My spouse wasn't able to get a job for a couple years because we just couldn't find a daycare that would take my daughter. Like, in two of our spots, it was just impossible. So my spouse had to stay home. So obviously,
Hey,
it's
you ever heard the phrase, Air Force didn't issue you your family? Or the Air
yes,
Force,
yes, I
the
have.
military didn't issue you
It's
your
your
family,
family. Yep, yep.
right? Like, to me, that's one thing. Like, the base goes, hey, we don't, we need to have the infrastructure to support 500 families on this installation. Medically, we got to be able to, provide them commissary, BX, all kinds of different functions, right? Shouldn't they be able to like account for all the inbound children that are coming in, their age? They have all the information. Why wouldn't they be like, all right, we don't have enough childcare resources to sustain this many families on this base. Maybe we should improve on that, expand on that, put money towards that, versus putting money towards, I mean, I don't know, expanding a runway. I'm sure that's a whole different budget, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
No, absolutely.
that there should be something to foresee the number of people showing up to the installation, the number of people leaving, and to be able to balance that with the amount of granted, we don't know what family is going to put their kids in daycare, but ask the question, hey, you're inbound, do you have children? Are your children going to be in daycare? Is your spouse working? What are your plans? Okay, yes, you want to put your kids in daycare on base, let's take a look at it. There are no availability, there are no options. What are your options from here on out? Is there a resource for if the CDC on base, the child daycare center on base can't support you? What do you do? Where do you go? Nothing outside the gate seems to be working because nothing survives outside the gate.
Yeah.
Whole nother story. But
Yep.
yeah, man, it's tough, man. And then when you do find it, it's an arm and a leg because they know how hard it is to find. We paid $1,000 for kids. That's crazy for a young 20-something-year-old kid, starting a new family to have to deal with.
No, it is. It's super hard, and another thing that, I think a lot of people probably don't realize is, cost of living, it's super high, especially right now. And in the military, they don't, the DoD does a raise every year, but it's pennies on the dollar, and it never catches up with what's going on in current time, what's going on in society. And it's really, really hard. I know a lot of in my career, I've known a lot that have had to been on welfare, which still
Mhm.
boggles my mind that it's a service member and they're on welfare. Like that just blows my mind that you can die for your country, but you're on welfare to feed your family. Like I think that's just pathetic. I know
Yeah.
they said back in December, the Pentagon said they were going to make they announced a plan to address food security. So, again, that's just kind of a little, lip service. You know what I mean? Like this is not new. This has been around DoD for a long time. And if you look, there's a lot of people that go off post to shop because sometimes the on post commissaries are horrible. The rotten food, or they're completely out. And sometimes it's cheaper off post than is on post. But again, it's a lot of money that you're coming out of your paycheck. A lot of people think, oh, you're in the military, you make good money. If you look at our, civilian counterparts, let's say you're in the Air Force and you're like a computer tech, your pay is nowhere close to what you would get in the civilian market. And secondly, with that pay, you work like you're not on hourly, like you get your set paycheck based on what rank you are and how long you've been in the military for. So you could work 7 days a week, you could work shift work, you could work, whatever.
Yeah, we're all
uh,
salary.
yeah,
We
and
were all salary.
there's no like, hey, I'm gonna get overtime because I'm working on the weekend, or I'm working a holiday, or I'm working a 24-hour duty, or you know what I mean? Like it's not like I think one time I saw they broke down, I think it was a E6 they looked at. It was like a $2.29 an hour that person averaged, for the hours that person puts in. It's kind of crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I did that as an airman. I remember as a young cat coming in, um, I was like, man, we're on 12-hour shifts to prepare for this inspection. Um, right? It's like it takes away from the whole stay prepared so you don't have to get prepared. We're basically cramming before the test. They put us on 12-hour shifts for an inspection because they're stupid. Like everything's gonna get fixed overnight. But we broke it down and we were getting like $8 an hour for what we were doing. So of course, when all the young cats realize they're not gonna get any extra pay for working harder, what are they gonna do? They're gonna start stretching it out and doing less in a longer period of time. You know what I mean?
No,
Like it just doesn't
definitely.
work. It doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. And
And
that
then you
kind of
don't get commensurate pay. You don't get extra food allowance. You don't get, none of that stuff.
Definitely. And that kind of goes into, the recruiting problem. If you look, I just the last couple of months, the Marine Corps has been all over the barracks, the mold in the barracks and housing on post housing. The Army did it.
Hmm.
The Army did this back in like 2019, where the chief of staff of the Army ordered that every on post housing was inspected. And there's tons mold, and especially the barracks. Barracks are for where your service members that are not married live in. They're kind of like, I guess you could call them dorms, or like little. I wouldn't call them an apartment, depending on what branch service you are. You could maybe call it apartment, but I think that's a huge one. That's a big reason why people are not joining. That's at least one of them, not the main one, I don't think, but I do think that's a big one. Like, man, like if I go and join and I have to live in this shithole, like I don't want to live in this, and at least for some branches, like certain ranks, you have to live in the barracks if you're not married. You don't have a choice of moving off the base, if like you're a lower grade, and I think that's a really kick a black eye, especially when think about like Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. You see these viral videos. We had one from Fort Bragg that there was feces in the barracks from the toilets backing up, and we're talking like weeks, not like days. Like always happened. Like when it rained, it always flooded the barracks and stuff, and it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's it comes from poor oversight, poor management. Like those aren't priorities for people, and it's never been a priority the way we live. Like never mind deploy locations. We're talking stateside. We're talking where you live day in day out. There's you try to keep pride in what's yours, right? But they just they don't have oversight over it correctly enough. They're like, here, take care of your own stuff, and then we got these cats who've never lived anywhere outside of their mom and dad's house. You know what I'm saying? And now they got these dorm rooms, kind of like when kids go to college. Of course, they're gonna fuck it all up. They're kids. They don't know what the hell they're doing, right? Like, have some better oversight. I think and take care of those properties. Mold should not be something that a kid should call back to his mom and dad and be like, "Look, I'm sick because there's mold in my room."
No,
Like, that's crazy.
absolutely, absolutely. And then
Uh,
it's kind of crazy. Accountability. Like here, I'm gonna share uh a photo of I just googled it real quick, but it kind of shows like it's give and take. It's the people who who need to be doing it, and the people that need to be cleaning it, and the people that are not. Here, let me share this real quick. Like here's a perfect example. Like this is how some of the kids live in their barracks. Now the room is small, but look at that. That's not healthy. And
I mean, that's a dirty ass dude.
but that's what I'm saying. Like when it goes into like caring, like somebody should be checking this room and seeing like how is this person living like that? You know what I mean? Like that's not good. It's not normal. Like it should be something that we check, and something, especially, the leadership that, is in charge of these young people
Mhm.
that join, like, instead of just letting it kind of go to shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, check this out. This is a picture
There you go. Yep.
that I was looking at here.
Perfect
Like,
example.
right?
Yep.
I mean, this is DOD, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
And I could tell you, what's funny is a lot of them, they'll say, "Hey, just wash it." And you're like, "No, it's super unhealthy.
Look at
Like you
that,
need
dude.
equipment." And the one on the far right, I've seen that before. That's happened to me before in units. Um, but I mean, that's a common thing. Think about it, man. Like I could say every base I've been, there's tons of that everywhere. And you call the work order in, so it's like calling maintenance. Um, and what you're doing is you're just waiting for somebody to come, fix it, because you can't do anything in the barracks on your own. You're not allowed to. You have to get it fixed. And that wait is just, I mean, forever and ever and ever. And it's like, my goodness, like, one big complaint that I had when I was younger was AC, just getting the AC to work in the barracks. Think about, certain bases that you're at, like Hawaii, for instance, in the summer, it's humid as shit, and it's a good 80 degrees. And most barracks now, they're not single story, they're 4 or 5 stories high. So at the top, guess what? It's probably like 90, 95 degrees in those barracks and stuff. And you got young people that have to live in them, and it's
Bro,
pathetic.
if I'm home, and this is home. This is like my regular house, and my AC goes out, I'm calling an emergency AC service to come take care of my AC because I'm not going to sleep in the heat, right? Deployed location. It's a 48 to 72-hour response to get somebody to come out and look at your AC unit in a deployed location. Like it's posted on the door. Call, submit a ticket, wait this amount of time for a response. They have 72 hours to get to you. I gotta wait 3 days. I gotta sleep in this 7 by 7 little space with no air conditioning, and it's 115 outside. Crazy, but
Absolutely. Here,
is what it is, man.
let me show another one, right? So obviously, again, but this is the thing that's like, I hate seeing, but it's way too common. Like, here's one right here, just tons of mold, and you can't do that. And this is a soldier that came right from Afghanistan, and this is how they expect him to just come back to it. Like, here's another
Well,
one.
here's the thing too. Like, go back to that one picture. Like, somebody can say, "Well, just clean it." Okay,
Exactly.
cool, right? Like, I'll clean that. I'll clean
Yep.
that really good. But where's that coming from?
Exactly. And then you
You
clean
know what
it,
I'm saying?
and a few days later, guess what? It's right back, and it's right
Hmm.
there. It's like, come on, like, we gotta be better than this. But
Yeah. Hey, do
it's
more with less. Expect better, but they can't. They don't improve the quality of life when it comes to some of these young cats in those dorms and these folks living in base housing. It's gotten better, but at the same time, it's like the standard should have been higher from the start long ago.
absolutely,
We're
absolutely.
playing catch up.
And it goes into do more with less, and that's the recruiting problem right now. The Army just announced that they're going to drop 20,000 jobs from our MOS list, which is a military occupational specialty, and they're going to drop 20,000 jobs. Not because they don't need them, they say that, but it's because they can't fill them. They don't have any people to fill those jobs. So instead of showing that, hey, we're net negative, we're just going to get those jobs and kind of make our numbers look better. um,
Hmm.
they also just posted an Alcarac, which is an all army activity document, and it's talking about recalling army retirees, that you can get recalled to active duty for 2 years with or without you wanting to. You can get recalled. Now, there's a screening process that you have to go through and all that stuff, but just the fact that the army is posting, they posted this Alcarac Friday, like that's unheard of. Back when the war started, that was kind of a thing. Retirees were kind of getting back in, but now this is a policy that's out now, and
Hold up. What's the incentive?
there is no incentive. It's just that you can get brought back in.
One more time. What's the incentive? Like they're
I
missing
know.
the mark.
Well, here,
How
just
are you
let me
gonna?
let me
How
share
are
this
you?
real
How
quick.
are you going to ask
Hey, so here we go.
people to come back?
The Army is seeking to bring back retired soldiers to fill critical manpower shortages, according to a service-wide directive published this week. The Alcarac describes how Army retirees can find and apply for open positions and aims to maintain a sufficient number of personnel to fill all of the Army's authorized positions. So kind of, in this, it goes through a little bit, and they have some higher ranks saying, "Yep, we have manpower shortages," and they're really the lower enlisted grades
Recruiting
that we're
crisis.
we're low on. Yep. But here we go. Uh, Here we go. What I was kind of talking to you about before. The Army's current force assumes an active duty end strength or total number of troops of 494,000, according to the document. Congress has then capped it at 445 at the end of 2024, and it's a super low number. But if you read the next paragraph, officials justified cutting 24,000 roles that have been left empty as the Army deals with its worst ever recruiting crisis, and helps ensuring the service only plans to sign and deploy the people it has available, cutting down on strain and allowing for more realistic training. So it shows you right there that they don't want to really cut the jobs. They just don't have the people to fill those jobs. And think, you're short 24,000 people of your largest ground combat force that you have out of all your services. That's pretty scary, man. You know what I mean?
That goes back to companies realizing they don't need offices. They can just have people work from home, so they start cutting back on all those locations to save money. Well,
Yeah.
we've had all these vacant positions in the army for how long, and we've done well without it. We can cut back and save that money. So let's go ahead back and cut those positions and just let our guys continue to do more with less. But what are they doing with that money? Like, what are those? Because those are all funded positions that aren't getting filled. So where's the money going to go to?
Well, right now, money's going everywhere else but the military. It's funny. A lot of people think like, oh, they just passed. They had the largest budget, ever passed in history. You know what I mean? Like defense budget. But in reality, that's not really trickling down to the service member. You know what I mean?
No, yeah. I mean, granted, there are some positions in the military that don't need to exist. There's lots of services in the military that we can just do without, that are just kind of old and redundant, and with the technology we have, we don't really need. Um, but at the same time, it's like put money towards, you got critical career fields. You know what I mean? Like, put money towards recruiting. Put money towards improving quality of life. The things that are important to the people who need them. Like,
Y-
put money towards that.
Well, you know what's crazy? So the I would just pull up the 2022 federal budget was 759. I'm sorry, 752 trillion dollars. Right. Of that federal budget, DoD got 825 billion. 20% of that is for soldiers' pay and all their and the other stuff. Service members. The rest, where does it all go? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And that kind of goes
that's
to
off the same article.
no. This is I googled it up and I'm pulling it off
Oh.
of Defense One. They kind of track like DoD's allotment, how much they use for pay,
Hmm.
insurance, and like how they divvy it up. Between like Department of Energy and the FBI and all that stuff, because that's all part of Department of Defense. That's all together. But it's very very crazy, like how much goes. And the breakdown for each branch was Army got 29 billion, Navy got 47 billion, Air Force received 35 billion, the Marine Corps got 4 billion, and Space Force got 3 billion. And again, it kind of goes like, hey, where does that actually go to? Because like there's so many shortages right now across DoD for weapons, for bullets, for there's been times where we didn't have fuel to take our vehicles out to go train, or we didn't
Hmm.
have enough ammo, or we don't have enough equipment to give all of our service members like NVGs or weapons or the correct gear that they're supposed to have. And again, doing less or more, but that puts a huge strain on the people that are having to do their job plus, four other jobs just because now they don't have that person fulfilling that job anymore.
Imagine being in a hospital for respiratory issues because there's mold in your dorm, and your installation doesn't have money to fix that, and we're sending how much money across, over the pond to all these other countries to buy bullets? Like, sheesh,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
priorities.
I know a certain base, it's a huge base. And I remember they had one TBI doctor for the entire base. And TBI is a very big thing, especially for those that deployed and been involved in,
What's TBI?
traumatic brain injury. So they talk about it like in football from all the getting hit in the head,
Hmm.
So when you get hit, IEDs or something like that, that concussion goes through your brain and kind of messes your juices up. So that's something that you got to get tested for. But when you have a
Yeah.
huge base that's got one TBI specialist, that's just, you're not taking care of your people. You know what I mean?
I guarantee you NFL teams have more specialists than that on
Oh
the
gosh,
payroll.
yeah. They got they
You
got
know what I mean?
they got nutritionists, they got dietitians. I mean, I think we haven't even talked about what it's like to eat at the chow halls on the base, because that's if you're not married, you're eating chow at the on base because it's you don't have to pay for it. But it's
Yeah.
some of the shittiest food, most unhealthy food. You can't like when I'll go and I pay because obviously I'm married, but it's like, hey, can I get, instead of getting the pre-bagged eggs, can I get 3 fresh eggs cooked? Because it's healthy, right? You need it to build your body up. No, we can only give you 2. But there's a ton of donuts and sugary stuff that you can take as much as you want,
Hmm.
but like the actual important food you can't get. And I think that's another thing. What do you think? So we don't go too long. What do you think is, in your eyes, what's the biggest problem you think of why young people today are not joining the services, in your opinion? If you could narrow it down.
Um, I think they're looking for that short term, like, what am I gonna benefit from it? You know what I mean? Like, the dorms are no longer um something people want to go live in. You know what I mean? The dorms are no longer a cool place to be, to hang out, to enjoy yourself, to to come up as a young cat in the services, because it's you got to watch out for shit like that. Mold. They're not doing repairs. It's just a city situation in some places. Um, but I mean, military has always had an issue recruiting, and I don't think it's going to solve the problem by throwing money into the wrong places. I think it's got to redirect it, where it counts. So, in its people, in the quality of life of its people, installations. Um, it's great that we're getting all these new aircrafts, these billion-dollar aircrafts, but you know, my my little Johnny is still living in the dorm room, you know, with mold coming through his vent, getting shitty chow from the DFAC. Well, they no longer go to the DFAC. They'd rather just order pizza, And then now they're going broke because they're ordering food. Then you're yelling at them to go to the DFAC. It's crazy.
No, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think DoD has done a really shitty job of trying to inspire. Like at least the Army had Be All You Can Be. It was catchy. It kind of got people.
Aim
And then
high.
aim high for the Air Force, and the Navy was I forgot what the Navy one was, but the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps has been the same. But I think kind of what's going on in the world today, I think that's having a huge toll on our younger people. COVID locked them down for a couple years, and then I think some of the advertising that the branches have done, I think, are doing a disservice to it. Um, I think
Oh yeah, when
sometimes
you're talking from a marketing perspective, the military is doing a terrible job of marketing itself through the
absolutely,
media.
absolutely horrible because
Terrible.
all you see is bad stuff, bad stuff. Soldiers getting hurt in Iraq. Getting bombed from crazy stuff when Iraq was supposed to be pretty much closed down. And then you look also at I remember a couple years ago they had a commercial of a young girl with two mothers, and it was like a cartoonish kind of thing, and it was nothing really about the military. It was about being prideful and showing pride that she's a girl, and
Mhm.
there's nothing wrong with that. But again, like who you're advertising to, DoD, 70% of the armed services, which is your Army, your Navy, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, Air Force, 70% are males. So you gotta like be able to tap into that and get what gets them. Showing them other stuff. I don't really think it does that. And I don't think they advertise all the stuff that the military can give to you. And sets you up for success, even if you just do like a 2-year gig or a 4-year gig. Um, I also think, at least for the Army, they don't concentrate on training anymore. It's not training for like your job to be a warfighter. It's take these classes on whatever it is, and you sit back. You're like, this is not what I joined the Army for. I joined the Army to go to the field and go, do training and do all that cool shit I saw when I was a kid or GI Joe. And here I am sitting in a classroom talking about feelings, or I'm in a suicide class, or it's very mundane. You can't even, my time in, it was hard to get guys and gals to go to the range because there was like 2 ranges for the whole base, and you have like 50 units trying to get their guys and gals, to the range just to shoot. And the soldiers were like, yo, this is not what I joined for. Like I joined to shoot my gun and do this and do that. And I can't even do that,
Mhm.
So I think that's a big one. And the other thing I think is bad is I think there's a real worry about war. I think the kids that are kind of older now are the ones that kind of saw, weren't even born during September 11th, but think about what they heard about soldiers and service members dying in Iraq and Afghanistan all the time. And if you look in the world today with everything that's going on in Europe, what might be going on in Taiwan, what's going on in PACOM, I think a lot of people are worried about the, hey, could this be another, Iraq or Afghanistan where we just send in tons and tons of people there and they come back, I guarantee everyone knows at least one vet that's got some kind of issues that they got back either physically or mentally, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I think that's great. I think that's different. And the people that are getting out now, I think when they go back to their communities, are like, hey, the military is not what it used to be. It's
Yeah.
not even close. It's much softer. And I think that's another one.
Yeah, and then I want to make it seem like bashing services or nothing, but it's
Yeah,
just like
no.
identifying limb facts, identifying like where we can improve. Like it shouldn't be this way. It doesn't have to be this way. I don't know what the solution is because I'm not the guys up there pulling the strings, but I know that it matters to people when they see things like this on the media, when they hear about things like this, quality of life and the way people live.
Yeah,
It'll definitely
because
detract people from joining.
yeah, because you're gonna have high and lows, and you're gonna have a sense of camaraderie. And there's a bunch of stuff that you won't know unless you're actually in or you've served. You know what I mean? But I
Yeah, I mean,
think,
I've been to some amazing dining facilities, and I've been to some
oh
terrible
yeah,
ones for
I've been to
sure.
some amazing bases, and I've been overseas to some cool places where I didn't have to carry a weapon all the time. I got to just go, do some training and see some really cool stuff that I would never ever, have the opportunity to do. Um, but let's go ahead and close up. And in conclusion, you got anything you want to add at all, Indigo?
Yeah, no, my plug for all this would be, do your research, check it out, understand what you're signing up for before you do it. Um, Definitely do your research. There's resources out there for people to utilize. They don't have to struggle. You don't have to suffer in silence. People have been through it, and just reach out and use your resources. Um, and it's always what you make of it. You know what I mean? You can get to a shitty installation and have shitty experience, but you meet the greatest people in the world. Sometimes that makes up for it. But yeah, that's all I got, man.
Yeah, I'll add on to that. I mean, us two, we wouldn't have met if it wasn't for the military, and we've been friends for
Hmm.
over 20 years. So that's perfect way to close out. So, hey, if you're considering the military or you're curious about it, like Indigo said, there's tons of places you can go. You can research, you can ask. I mean, you can go anywhere and
Hmm.
ask about it. Recruiters are not bad. Recruiters are doing a job just like everybody else. I can speak. I was a recruiter years and years and years ago. But hopefully, we gave you some good info, some insights that maybe you didn't know about or you're thinking about. Please don't forget, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for content. And please leave a
Yep,
comment if
yep,
you got questions, anything that you maybe agree or disagree with, or you want to know. Um, be more than happy to give some answers. All right. We'll catch you on the flip side. Thanks.
peace.